Welcome to another great webinar. The title of this one today is How Top Sales Leaders Use Data and Automation to Upskill Teams. So super excited to chat with you all today. But first, I just need to go through a couple of housekeeping items. Just some simple tips and tricks. We are presenting this on a web-based platform. So if you're experiencing any connectivity issues, please just refresh your window or exit out of the link and rejoin using that confirmation or registration link. If you are experiencing still some issues, sometimes there is some holding music that still sits on there. Again, just refreshing that window will help. But if not, use that Q&A chat box, which should be right on your screen there, to let us know what those issues are, and we will do the best that we can to alleviate them. You can also use that Q&A chat box to let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to submit them as they come up. We may take some throughout the session, but we'll save some for the end if we need to as well. We have a lot to cover today. A top housekeeping item will you get the recording of this session? Yes, you will. You'll get it within 24 to 48 hours after we conclude today. So keep an eye on your inbox. Any other content or any other information that we can provide for you based off this topic, we will also surface in that email. Let me see. And I believe that's it, except for our last one, which is ZoomInfo is a publicly traded company. This is our safe harbor statement here displayed for your review. Any buying decisions you make should be made based only upon currently available products and offerings. Alrighty. So, topic is, here are our experts for today. We have Ryan Osterveld. He is a sales senior manager here at ZoomInfo. Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and welcome.
Hey, thank you. My name's Ryan Osterveld. I'm one of the senior sales managers. Been with ZoomInfo for a little over 5 years. Been a great experience. And right now I get the opportunity to lead our new business market in EMEA. So a lot of my team today is based in our office in Shoreditch right now. We have an office in Tel Aviv, Israel, that I also get the opportunity to work with. So right now, just helping ZoomInfo with global domination and just working with our EMEA new business sales team.
Awesome. Thank you. And we've got Philip Nagel. He's a sales manager here at ZoomInfo as well. Philip, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, to carry on what Ryan just said, global domination. Funny enough, I was actually under his team. Been with ZoomInfo for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. Was an IC here, so I know what it's like to be an account executive. Moved into a leadership role under Ryan. And then actually now just recently took on a new role as a sales manager, continuing that domination into Canada as well. So I'm one of the new business leads there, but still a part of Ryan Osterveld's international team. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining us. And my name is Rebecca Stanton. I'll be your moderator for today. I'm just going to help this fireside chat conversation happen and move along and make sure that we get to all of the topics we wanted to cover today. So that's my role. Really lean into Ryan and Philip for all of the skills and topics and tips and tricks that you can. Any questions, we'll go directly to them. We'll surface them up as they come up if we can. If not, we'll save them for the end. So topic that we're going to cover first is identifying future managers. So we're talking a lot about how we can kind of pull apart your current group of individual sellers or individual contributors and really identify some of those leading potential managers for promotion. So Ryan, I want to kick things off with you. A top performing individual contributor does not necessarily make for a great sales manager. When assessing potential leadership or managerial candidates, whether external or internal, what aspects do you look at that tell you that they are ready for the challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, one of the top things that I'm looking for is, are they able to perform at a high level in their current role, right? And I think it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the very best rep on the team, but it means that they're able to come in every day, execute at a high level and perform what the role requires. I think, to be honest, it's really important because oftentimes, as you're scaling out a business, that leader is probably going to be taking over a team of existing account executives or sales reps. So, you want that new leader to have buy-in from the rest of their team that, hey, this is a leader that can go show me how to be successful, show me how to get to the next level. And so, again, I think being a top performer or one of the top performers is something I like to try to find. Also, we all have those rock star account executives that we don't know how they get to their number at the end of the month, or they just make some magic happen. And that's great. But I'm also looking for a rep that can be able to do, perform at a high level, but with a process, right? Like I want something that when I promote that next leader up, if I give them a team of 2, 5, 10 reps, that they're able to then show that team a repeatable process and how they're able to achieve their goals and outcomes, not something that, you know, might have a little bit of a unique characteristic around or something that one individual can do but not replicate. And then, you know, finally, I think it's just making sure that they have the right goals and ambitions. I think a lot of us feel that, you know, if you're looking to get into leadership and it's about, you know, independence, you know, more money, more power, in my view, you know, I don't think those are the right traits to get you long-term where you want to be and to help grow the organization. What I'm typically looking for is someone that has a helping heart, that wants to help others, that will take that extra time to develop their team, even as an IC. And also like someone that's looking to grow in other areas of their career. You know, you can be a top rep, but do you want to be able to learn how to work with other departments, to be able to build processes, to make sure that we're operationalizing the most effective ways to go to market? So just other areas in their own careers where they might want to expand their knowledge, their skill set. That's something else that I'm typically looking for as I move an IC to a leader.
Yeah,
That's
you
awesome.
know what? Actually, touching upon that, Ryan, you brought up a good point, right? It's that helping heart point. For us, so many times you as an IC, you want that glory, right? You close that big deal, that small deal, that epic deal at an end of month, end of quarter. But in this case, you're taking more of that quarterback position, right? You need to be that selfless person, more that helping hand. And I think you need to have that characteristic of being selfless, where you know that maybe in a lot of cases you did a lot of that heavy work for your rep, whether it's at the beginning of a call, whether it's at the end in the negotiation stage, and maybe you're not going to get the credit that you deserve, but you also want to make sure that you highlight your individual contributor. And I think one thing in a great way that we test this here at ZoomInfo as well, and I know Ryan and I both do this, is if we have a candidate that makes sense, that could be a potential good leader, a good manager, we have a buddy system. So we like to, in this case, pair them up with a new hire, see how they do from a coaching standpoint, being that resource, being available to them, and ultimately, I guess, removing barriers for them in those first 3 to 6 months. And if we see that work out successfully, they're absolutely a candidate that we would consider when it's time to move someone into that full-time manager position.
That's awesome. All right, great points all around. So Phil, let's stay with you for a moment. What skills, other than what you just, a couple that you gave there, do individual contributors need as they transition to a managerial role? So if you've already set them up and you think that they're going to be, moving into that managerial role, what skills do they need to have?
Where do I start? I feel like there's a lot of skills. I feel like one of the big ones here too, and I know this is a great book that Ryan and I have read by Liz Wiseman, is actually Multipliers. That really resonated with me in the sense of you want to be that multiplier on the team, right? You want to be able to, in this case, if you were that selfless person, that person that was a resource to people, you want many of those on your team. And this is something that you want to scale for the business, right? So I think a few important parts are, of course, you need to know how to sell the product. Right? You need to be a product expert and a sales expert. Because as a manager, especially as a frontline manager, you are supposed to be that person that they can come to when things are not going well. When things are going well and you're trying to push it over the finish line, whether it's with tips and tricks, but also just being able to have that presence on a phone call with a prospect. I think another really important part is not only to be a good coach, but to be coachable still. Even under Ryan's guidance, I moved in from a high-performing IC role. I'm still constantly learning from him, but I'm also relaying this to my team, that trickle-down effect. So a few of the ways that we do this here at ZoomInfo is we use Chorus, of course, right, for conversational intelligence, and being able to identify through data where there's glare points in the team for individuals or the team, by being able to pick up maybe competitors that are being brought up in conversations and making sure they have the right talk tracks to go against that. Maybe even budget concerns, the way they negotiate. And another really important part here, Rebecca, is actually knowing what resources to use internally, right? Not just as an individual, but where do I loop in legal counsel? When do I loop in a solutions engineer? Knowing when to pull in the right resources to make sure that the rep is supported on all ends. I think that's something that especially a lot of new reps don't really know yet, and that will definitely help them for long-term success. And then lastly, one of the things that comes to mind is, like, also as a manager, is you want to know what plays to run, right? We here internally, Ryan and I, we do our pipeline reviews every single Monday. And it's not just to understand how deals are progressing, how things are going, but hey, if I have Tim that's has 6 deals in play and he's like, I don't know where they are, I can't forecast them for the month. Well, what plays and what guidance can we give to them to progress those deals and also have a better hold on their entire forecast for the month? So those are just a few of mine. I'm sure Ryan has a few more to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I'm really looking for when I've identified an IC that can be a leader is I want to help them with their communication skills, right? I think we all know as leaders that sometimes, we have to have very direct conversations, uncomfortable conversations, conversations that just aren't pleasant. And so just making sure that, that individual is able to clearly articulate, their message, their vision, their strategy, because what you don't want as a new leader is to come in, give guidance to your team on where you'd like them to go and execute, and then potentially get 5 different outcomes or 5 different understandings of what you deliver down. So one of the things I'm looking for is, are they able to clearly communicate their vision, their goals, their strategies? The other thing to Phil's earlier point is I need them to be a product expert. We do a lot of team selling at ZoomInfo. We think it's one of the most successful ways of winning together. And so I want my management team to be able to jump on calls, to drive into the solution, to drive value and outcomes for our customers. So I need them to be really well versed in the platform. I think also relationship building is really critical. For us on the new business side, we might get to work a sales cycle with a new prospect for a day, a week, a month, a few months, and then we bring that over to the retention team. But as a leader, your customers now become your sales team, right? So being able to build those relationships around the people that you're going to be working with every single day, whether that's going to be personal or business oriented, right? But being able to build those relationships, help each other out, know that everyone's a little bit different. And then lastly, probably one of the hardest things, in my opinion, that you need to figure out is being able to read and interpret data. In the beginning and the scaling stages for small businesses, you might be able to get by just doing things the way you've always done. But as you scale, as you grow your organization, you're going to want that scalability. And that comes from being able to read data, to understand what the data is telling you, and then make strategic decisions based off of that. And I find that for most ICs, that's an area where they don't really have that skill set quite yet, and it's not as developed as it needs to be. So really just making sure that that's something that they're capable of and that they understand, really important.
Great skills. I love that. I think it's hard to find managers that have all of those characteristics or have all of those skills. So it's really trying to find that needle in the haystack, or some that have kind of that priority list for you when it comes to characteristics and skills, and making sure that the priority within those lists are met by that individual contributor. But Phil, so if they're not in that kind of, they have all the skills, they have all the characteristics, how do individual contributors maybe need to either reorient or have the right mindset to undertake a managerial role? So what is that right mindset, or how do they need to reorient their mindset?
So it's definitely that we, not me mentality, being a team player, right? Like almost being more of a player coach. The first thing, this actually just came to my mind right now, but I remember even walking into the ZoomInfo building in Waltham for the first time, and there was this huge lettering, if you want to say, where it just says, "Win as a team, never lose alone." And that stuck with me since day one, where like we are a team, whether you're the manager for the team, like our directors, our VPs, our SVPs. So being able to know that you're a part of a bigger picture here, and that you are supposed to be that resource for your team, that person that they can go to, not just from a sales perspective, but from a personal perspective. I think there's a lot that goes into that. But I think one of the really important things too, when it comes to that, is knowing what works for you. Because it maybe doesn't work for everyone else. If you are a strong closer, strong performing rep, overachiever, maybe there's other people that have other strengths. Yes, they hit their quotas, but they are extremely vocal on team meetings and being a resource for other new reps. So I think being able to also use then to reorient where you're not looking at yourself, but now you have to look at your team. When I say what works for you, what doesn't work for someone else is, well, where are those strengths and weaknesses within my team? And going back to chorus conversational intelligence, using data. What we do is we review calls at the end of a day, or even on team call coachings, where we understand by filtering for competitors, keywords, and be like, okay, Ryan, looks like you weren't able to ask the right question here. Looks like in the negotiation, we lost out on something. Or why didn't you pitch this particular product when they were talking about this particular problem? It's an easier way and a scalable way, since we can't be everywhere. I can't be on every call with every rep, but it's a great way to coach from above and give pointers. And even based on that is we can customize game plans per rep, right? Not everything fits for everyone. If we know someone's strong in negotiation, but is maybe a little weaker in discovery, great. We give them an assignment for the week and we show them call recordings and make them even send them back to us for a review. For Ryan and I to say, hey, this is good. We love the improvement. That's what it's all about. It's 1% better every day. And then also it helps managers, when you reorient like that, to prioritize, right? Everyone will need your help, but you'll know, hey, Phil needs my help more than Ryan. Ryan's been pretty self-sufficient for the last 6 months to a year. So being able to use that, and then ultimately just giving them direction based on this. So knowing what doesn't work and what works for people and being that team players is so vital as being a successful manager.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of put in my thoughts here too. I mean, I think, when I ask any new leader that's going to potentially join my team to think about is, I really want them to come in with a blank mindset. They're coming into a different role. Although they might be coaching a team of something that they've been doing successfully for years, you are starting out at the bottom of the totem pole, and it is a very different role. So I ask all of my new leaders, or people that I think can be a new leader, to be hungry, to be empathetic, to be open-minded, that they're not going to always, know exactly what to do. Some examples of this, I think one of the things that stuck with me quite a bit is my leader, Ray and Chris Hayes. When I was looking to advance my career, they said, hey, Ryan, you're not going to know everything. There's going to be skill sets that you just don't have yet. So you need to know how to leverage the resources around you, how to work with enablement to help develop your team when you're not available, how to work with operations to make efficiencies and some automation around what we're doing on a daily basis, working with Rebecca in marketing, with Tim in the SDR side to optimize those relationships and get the right outcomes. So for me, when I'm thinking about an individual contributor and how their mindset should look as they scale up, I want them to come in hungry, open-minded, and think that, this is a brand new role where I need to prove myself and learn other skill sets outside of just being a successful seller.
I love it. It's definitely hard to come in as a new person into an organization, whether it's being a manager or not, and being able to, you have to have that open mindset and understand how the organization is working, bring in your skills and your expertise, because that's why we hired you. But at the same time, making sure that you have that open mindset and conform to what is going to support your sellers, or if you are that manager coming in. I'd love to switch over to you, Ryan, and just ask, how do you leverage cadenced one-on-ones with individual contributors to best prime them for a manager role?
Yeah, so I think, I mentioned it earlier, but oftentimes you're going to find with a rep that, oftentimes their communication skills going to be pretty good, and they might be pretty well organized because they might be dealing with a lot of opportunities, and that's how they make their livelihood. I think the biggest area that I typically find that reps aren't capable of doing something out of the box is really understanding the data and the metrics, and then being able to operationalize a game plan around that. So when I'm working with an IC that wants to begin to make that move up, one of the big emphasis that I typically will put into practice is, instead of just looking at the data for them, hey, what's your average sale price? What's your typical sales length? What types of product mix are we selling based on the types of leads we're getting? I'm going to actually open up the curtains and show them behind the scenes for my overall organization, for my overall team, and say, hey, look at how this team is set up. Look at how this data is. Help me understand, what do you see? What are you, noticing for trends? What would you do differently here to enable the team to go raise their ASP as a whole? What can we do to help our win rate over here? So instead of focusing on an IC's specific metrics, what I'll typically do is start showing them the larger picture and help them to start thinking about how I'm thinking about the data. I want them, any manager that I bring in, I want them to take over my role one day. I want them to pass me. And so really what I want them to be able to do is see exactly why I make the strategies, the decisions I do in every single week or month, and help them connect those dots. Because if they can start connecting those dots on a larger scope and a larger picture, that's going to be the right path to getting greater success out of their team in the future.
That's awesome. All right, let's switch into our next section here. So next one is tools to help the transition to a managerial role. So Phil, we're going to kick things off with you. Re-listening to calls can be a great way to coach ambitious sales reps, like you've mentioned a couple of times. So talk to me about how you use conversation intelligence in Chorus to provide coaching on customer interactions and strengthen the relationship with a customer. You've talked a little bit about coaching and things like that, but let's focus in on just how you utilize Chorus coaching on a customer interaction and strengthen that relationship.
Yeah, I think what's really important there is, and I think Ryan and I were quite literally talking about this yesterday, as a leader, but even as an IC, there's a few things in your tech stack that are a must-have, and using a Chorus is one of them for so many different levels, and like you just alluded to. So I think one of the main ones for us is, of course, coaching, right? Being able to understand, hey, it seems like we left something on the table with customer X, right? I identified that there was something left unanswered. Hey, can you go back, send them a white paper, send them a quick custom vidyard addressing it, be like, hey, seems like I dropped the ball on X on the last call, just wanted to revisit this, and it's a great no call to action touch point as well. So being able to identify where we did stuff not so well, but of course, we also use it on the other side to give a pat on the back. Hey, great call, right? We even share those snippets internally so that we can pump each other up when things go really well. A big one too for us, especially moving from an IC into a leadership role, is for pipeline reviews. We quite literally look into Chorus on, let's just say you're working with customer X, and I ask one of my reps, how are things going? Like, you're forecasting it for this month. Tell me why. Ryan and I look at it, and guess what? It shows that there's been no interaction for the last 2 weeks. There's been no Zoom meeting, no emails, no phone calls. Well, maybe the momentum in this deal has slowed. So it's a great way for us as managers to call out bias, but also to have that holistic view, right? Because again, we can't be everywhere. I think also identifying risk by using Chorus and hearing, hey, how often has a competitor been mentioned? Have they mentioned timeline, budget constraints? These are all things in pipeline reviews that we can analyze. Especially given today's climate, if we look at it economically, companies are looking to cut back and, of course, maximize ROI. That's ZoomInfo. This is what it's all about. It's maximizing ROI and doing more with less. And what I mean by that is using Chorus, again, we know that my reps, it's not just one decision maker that they're talking to. It's not like they talk to Ryan, he's going to sign the check. No, on average, it takes 3 to 6 economic buyers in any deal situation. And it's easy for us to identify, yes, with our data, since we have the data on these people, but to see, do we have those resources looped in from the customer side? This is great for RNG as well, but it's a great way for us to understand, hey, there's a good likelihood this is going to close. We see the momentum. We see that the right stakeholders are involved early on. And that's extremely important for us, for the ICs moving into management, to know exactly where everyone stands.
And I think something to add into that too, just a different perspective, but I think a lot of leaders that I've worked with in the past, they might pull apart one call with Chorus, right? They listen to a call from start to finish. And sometimes what I find is that maybe that rep isn't struggling with every aspect of the sales call. Maybe they're struggling with the delivery of pricing. Maybe they're not really understanding what the problem is and the impact to that business and what that means. So what I like to do is I like to have my reps come prepared, because as a leader, you need to maximize your time. So I'll say, hey, come prepared on our next call coaching session. I want you to bring me 3 calls, and I want to peel apart just the 10 minutes in discovery. And I want to see how we set up discovery, what we identify in discovery, and let's just drill into only discovery. So something that I really like to do is, if there is one specific mechanism, and again, by leveraging data to understand what that area of focus is, I can then really pinpoint my coaching and my review of those calls all around that one area and give them one singular thing to focus on for that next week, for that next month, to really try to up level that specific skill as quickly as possible. So that's something that I really prefer to do with coaching, is just making sure that, you know, we're working on the right pieces for the right person and driving the outcomes that we need on the back end.
Great point, Ryan. And it's interesting for everyone here on the call too, right? As we do this, especially if you have your team scattered geographically, it's a great way to get people ramped up really quick. Hey, this is what the good reps are doing.
Yep. To what Phil said earlier, like right now, most of my team is in the UK, and I'm here in Michigan. So one thing that I really love to do is when we're practicing a new talk track against a competitor, or maybe we're practicing a new solution that we just rolled out, you know, I'll spiff it. I'll say, hey, I want you guys to share snippets in our Slack channel of you guys practicing this slide, you guys asking for the business, you know, you recommending this solution. And that really starts driving the momentum and the right engagement from your team behind the scenes. So it's a great way to just really quickly level up your entire team, even in a remote workforce that we are today.
Awesome. All right, so there was one question that came in that we want to just address really quickly before we move on. And this is for you, Phil, I believe. Yes, sure. For you. Just wanted to have you kind of bring back up, what was the 3 to 6 number that you shared a few minutes ago? If you could just give us a little reminder there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this varies from company to company, right? Whether you're working with an SMB, medium size market, or to the enterprise, but especially the higher up you go. So when we say that there's about 3 to 6 decision makers in any deal, and a lot of times people that come to ZoomInfo can be an individual contributor, it could be a sales manager, but I know even if I want to bring something to ZoomInfo to support my team, I need to get Ryan's buy-in, I need to get Ray, his boss's buy-in, and ultimately, most likely it's going to go to even Chris Hayes at the top of the ladder. So you're not just selling to one stakeholder. It's not like you're going in and saying, hey, Phil, you want this, are you signing the check? And I think what's so important is the sooner and the earlier you can loop in more, get multi-threaded, loop in additional stakeholders, build a groundswell, multi-thread, whatever it is, actually it decreases the sales cycle, and most of the time also increases the average sales price. The more people you get involved, the more licenses you could sell, the larger the package is going to be. And I know Ryan and I have talked about this before, but our average deal cycle is about 21 days. So that's pretty quick. So our job is always to get to power as quick as possible, and of course build that groundswell for everyone else.
And I think just to even add on to that, like, you know, Phil mentioned it earlier, but the economic climate in today's world is very different than it might have been a few years ago. So what we've been finding on the new business side is that people are scrutinizing every dollar that they spend, right? There are heads of finance, controllers, CFOs that are now being looped in on a smaller purchase that might have not been in the past. Things need to go to the board for approval more than they have in the past. Funding is scrutinized. So for us, when we're doing coaching, you know, one of the nice things about Chorus is it can tell us how many people are looped in on that sales cycle, how many people are we engaging with, and then as we're working through those pipeline reviews, we can identify, hey, you know, we need a multi-thread. Here are some options on how we do that. Again, just to protect that deal and build the right internal champions that we need to get the win.
Awesome. All right, there's some questions coming in here. We could probably save them for the end, but I wanted to just remind someone that asked in here, Ryan Tobin is asking what Phil was referring to, and I believe he was talking about Chorus. So Chorus is a conversation intelligence tool that we have here at ZoomInfo that we sell and use ourselves. So is Chorus. We'll make sure that in the follow-up emails with the recording of this webinar, you have a little link to what Chorus is and give you a little bit more of a deeper dive into understanding what that is. We also have a survey that I forgot to mention, but we do have a survey that we you can interact with and let us know if you're interested in learning more from ZoomInfo. So definitely interact with that and let us know there. There's a couple other questions in here, guys, that I think we could answer just to give a little bit more clarity. There's another question in here, and Ryan and Phil, you can both answer separately, but how many reps is a sales manager leading? So Ryan, how many are you leading, and then Phil?
So I have a team of 5 managers today, and we have roughly 30 reps. Typically, like in my opinion, and again, it's going to be different based on sales cycle length, volume, all of that, but we're a pretty transactional business in the sense that when clients see the value, they typically will implement this pretty quickly. So for most of my managers, I think 7 is about the sweet spot, to be able to effectively jump on calls, do the pipeline management, do the call coaching that's needed. 6, 7, 8 is kind of that sweet spot. So that's typically how ZoomInfo sets up most of our go-to-market teams on the new business side.
Yeah, and I think I can add to that. Obviously, like I agree with Ryan. I would say it's anywhere between 6 to 8. Anything beyond that, even our rock star managers here at ZoomInfo, it's a lot to be able to manage beyond that and be everywhere, even with the likes of a Chorus and the tools that we use here. But for me, it's a little bit different. I'm scaling a new business right now as a new business lead. So for me, I have 6 to 8 reps. But of course, typically as we scale that beyond, you would put another manager underneath you. So Ryan's done this before, where maybe they start off with 5 reps if it's a brand new manager, and then scale that as they become more tenured.
Awesome. All right, last question here. Alexander is asking, are you also making face-to-face meetings, or are all your meetings virtual? I don't know which one you want to take that, but you both can answer if you'd like.
That's an easy one. I mean, for us at ZoomInfo, I think the beautiful thing about technology, and one of the benefits of the pandemic, has been that it's a lot easier to work remote. All of our reps currently do everything via Zoom meetings, so all of our meetings are virtual on our side.
Awesome.
What Ryan said.
Perfect. Okay, so let's move on. I know, Ryan, this is a question that I believe you already kind of answered, but I'd love for you to just give us anything else you have, any other points or tips or tricks you have around here. And as a sales leader, you succeed if your team is successful. How do you use Chorus? And you mentioned a little bit, but if there's anything else to add there to keep an eye on rep performance and help them improve it where needed.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple of things that I like to do. So one is I set up automation around this. I know part of what we're talking about today is how do we use automation to make that more scalable. One of the things I actually use Chorus for is, asking for the sale. You hope your reps always do it, but we all know that isn't always the case. So we can use Chorus to set up specific trackers on calls. And so basically what I've set up is certain keywords or things that I'm looking to drive home to the team, I'll set up a tracker for. And then every morning when I come into work, Chorus is able to deliver me a summary email of the day before for all the calls, show me who was asking for the business, where in the moment of the call that was done. So I can quickly be able to spot check, are we doing the right behaviors that we're looking for? Again, if I want to up level the rest of the team, I can go grab that moment, that snippet, drive that back into my team Slack channel and share that good experience, that good talk track with the rest of my org. So that's one thing that we like to do is track specific keywords, competitors, objections. Another instance that we'll use it for is what type of friction are we seeing in the sales process? We want to be audible ready as much as possible. And so one of the things that as we've been scaling into the UK market, we used to quote everything in US dollars. And what we kept noticing on our calls is that clients were asking about if we could quote this in pounds. They kept on doing the conversion rates on the call live, and it was causing friction in our deals, even when we got to finance for the sign off. So one of the things that we did was we analyzed a bunch of our sales calls. We made the decision to switch our pricing over to pounds, and we've been able to see that effect, cascade across the rest of our deals where sales cycles are moving a little bit faster. We're seeing less resistance to our pricing matrix. So using some of those things to identify, are we getting the right behaviors and getting it automated to me? And then also making, high level decisions on how we might want to operate as a business to really enable our team to go to market, as effectively as we can.
One thing to add there, and Brian, I think we can agree on this too, especially from a managerial perspective, is it's also a great way to enable accountability. Right? When you ask somebody in a coaching session, hey, I want you to ask for the business on this call. I want you to do X. It's easy for us to be like, hey, Ryan, by the end of the week, I want you to send me 2 snippets of you doing this. If we don't have this sort of technology, there's no way of us knowing if they're doing it on the call unless we are on the call. And yes, they will always do it when we're on the call, but are they doing it when we're not there?
100%.
Great points all around. All right. Ryan, let's kick things back with you. You run email sales plays regularly and coach your team on them. What are 1 to 2 creative plays that each of you leverage for your team? Well, Ryan, we'll start with you.
So one of the things that we're always trying to do, because our sales cycle is so quick and it's very much a velocity driven sale and momentum is king, we try to drive as much value into our sales process back to our customer as we can during that very limited time. So we actually have a playbook of a bunch of different value add things that we can do during the sales cycle where there is no ask back from the client. It is just us helping enable our customer to see value quicker. And these can be things like case studies on a specific challenge that they're facing, an ROI calculation on how they can see an ROI with ZoomInfo as quickly as possible. If we're building up a TAM search for a prospect, we might just send them a list of free contacts, 50, 100 people, just so that they can still build pipeline as they're doing the evaluation. So just doing things that can only be received as a value, as a give to our customers is one thing to keep that momentum going. So we have that playbook designed. And as I bring on new reps, I can quickly say, hey, between call 1 and call 2, here's our standard plays. Pick the ones that are best for our customer that will drive the most value. And let's make sure we get those touch points out. And then, again, one of the other things that we do is a lot of team selling. So what we'll typically do is a manager call behind at the end of every month. So if we have deals that we're forecasting, deals that we think we need to go get, our sales team can quickly, through automation, figure out what companies that is. We can automate that list back to our management team, and then we can drive email campaigns against this based on the products that they're looking at, based on how long the sales cycle's been open, and then my managers will then follow up with a call behind. So we're using that type of emailing to keep those deals moving or quickly figure out, if it's in front of us or not.
I think Ryan brought up some of the most important things. So there's not much to add from my end, but I think one play particular, especially given the length of our average deal size, is one of the plays we like to use early and often is in sort of a way, just understand where we stand with customers, right? We understand for prospects, sometimes they're not ready, sometimes they're excited, but there's something standing in the way. And what we like to use is a breakup email. And simply all it is whether you haven't heard back from people for 2 weeks after engaging, or they were so excited on their first call, please send me more information, I want to set up a call with my team, and all of a sudden there's radio silence. We just send something simply that says, hey, I know I walk a fine line here between being persistent and annoying, right? Understanding where they are. Have you given up on this project? Have you lost interest? Did I miss the mark on something? I can take the no. If you're not interested, I don't want to keep bothering you. I think that's so important so early in the sales cycle, and prioritizing what's real, what's not. Is it really just a timing thing? Or did they have some concerns about the product? These are things that we want to address firsthand.
And I think it's really important for our business too. For us, our account executives are very fortunate. We feed them a lot of leads. Rebecca and the marketing team do a great job at getting us at bats. And so, the most important thing for any rep is their time, right? Their time is the most critical thing that they have available to them. So I have a saying that I always tell my team, which is, there are 4 ways to work a deal. Only one of them is the wrong way. And that's win fast, win slow, lose fast, but do not lose slow. And so for us, when we think we're starting to lose momentum or that it might not be a real opportunity, I want to understand that as quickly as possible so that we can prioritize the right opportunities to get them across the finish line.
Awesome. I love that. Win fast, win slow, lose fast. Definitely don't lose slow.
We'll make it a t-shirt, Rebecca.
Yeah, we really should. That should definitely be on a t-shirt for sure. All right, Ryan. So how does ZoomInfo Engage help your reps expand their engagement output? And how do you track key KPIs and the effectiveness of their messaging?
Yeah, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Engage is ZoomInfo's sales automation tool, right? And I think when you think about what you need to go to market effectively, you need the data asset, you need the timing element, but you also want that automation. So for us, it's like clockwork. Again, automation through messaging, but we will have reports every month, every end of quarter, every end of year. Well, we'll go look through our closed dead, opportunities that stalled out greater than 6 months, opportunities that we did not run trials on. And then we will create sequencing for our reps where literally the report is here, the sequence is set up, I just need those reps to then go and actionize that data and put them into motion and get the dials out and let the emails fire off behind the scenes. So we will actually do all of that for our reps. We have a great demand gen team that helps us build up these targeted lists based on different data points. We'll create the specific templated messaging that we need our reps to go drive home. That way, when you have a new rep that might not know the value proposition or how to template that email, they just take the list, they drop it in, and they follow the order of operations on the back end. And then through that, we look at things like open rates, click rates, forwarding, how often is this being engaged with? We do a lot of A/B testing on the messaging to make sure we're getting the best outcomes that we possibly can. But for our business, and again, just trying to be as efficient as possible, we take as much of that, legwork out for the reps and really just use data to pull the data that we need. And then the right messaging is already set up and queued and ready to go.
Awesome. All right, last question for you folks before we jump into our audience questions. So audience members, if you have any questions for our speakers, I know there's a couple in here right now, but if there's any others, feel free to start submitting those as they come up. All right, so Ryan, sticking with you here, how can an AE or an AM, so an account executive or an account manager that is thinking about moving to a managerial role, use ZoomInfo data and automation in their day-to-day job to be ready for the managerial position?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that I would recommend to anyone that's considering that, and again, using ZoomInfo's data, using our automation, is build something that can be repeatable and that is process oriented, right? Like, you asking them to go try this talk tracker, you asking them to be a better closer, that's arbitrary, right? We don't know if we can drive those outcomes, that's subjective. So do something that we know that everybody can go and execute on day one. So what I would recommend is help understand, what does a typical prospecting cadence look like? Build that out as a sales flow inside of Engage so that when you hire that next rep and when you're scaling that team out, you don't need to teach them how to prospect or drive the messaging. They can just drop it right into a specific sales flow. Help understand, what is your ICP? What is the types of personas that we should be engaging and reaching out to? At what types of accounts is our sweet spot that we're going to get the best ASP, the best momentum in that account, and build that out. In ZoomInfo, you can build an ideal client profile, a buying committee. And again, it's just taking out some of those little nuances on the back end so that when you do step up into that manager role and you are helping your team scale and grow, it's, hey, the messaging's already set, the personas are set, the types of accounts are set. I just need you guys to then actionize that data, and I'll help you with some of those other soft sales skills like negotiating, like driving urgency in a deal, things like that. So my recommendation is, don't pick something arbitrary, build something that's very process oriented, and that's going to lead to the best results out of the box.
That's hard to come back from, Ryan. But just to add to that, I mean, Ryan and I specifically, we've sold in the U.S., we've sold internationally. I mean, we've had customers for 10 plus years in the UK, in the EMEA region. But one thing that we wanted to control as we expanded our market presence in those regions, and now for me, of course, spearheading a dedicated team in Canada, is by using that data, something tangible. What talk tracks are working by analyzing chorus snippets. Using Engage, what messaging is resonating best with personas? What works in Boston in the US doesn't work necessarily in London in the UK, right? Nomenclature varies. Also use cases, maturity. There's so many things that come into play. What's important for us is it's about iterating, always improving, 1% better every day. And we can only do this by using solid data in our day-to-day to understand, where do we need to make those tweaks? This is, again, coaching your reps, what talk tracks, talking about privacy, compliance, to address any customer concerns when it comes to that, which we take very, very seriously here at ZoomInfo. And then being able to scale that across the business as quick as possible.
And just to double down on this, right? Like, if there isn't a process that's defined, that's understood, you're not going to be able to scale. You're not going to be able to pivot quickly because it's not going to be something that's repeatable and understandable to your team. So it's just so critical to have a foundational layer that is, again, process driven, data driven, so that you guys can be able to pivot quickly. I think that's one of the best things about ZoomInfo is since everything we do is around process and efficiency, it is very easy for our business, as large as it is today, to make quick decisions based on data and then go to market with it super quickly.
You'd be surprised if you make these tools available to your reps. Yes, do Ryan and I make some stuff mandatory in the sense of, hey, I want you to send me these snippets. I want you to send me this. You'd be surprised by sometimes when we take a look at the analytics and see who's listened to the most chorus calls of top performing reps. Most of the time, it's our top performing reps. Like an athlete, I'm going to use one of my favorite athletes, Tom Brady. He watches game film every single day. He's one of the best at what he does. I could have for some of our soccer fans here some other analogies. But what do? They analyze constantly, no matter how good you are. And that's a trend you'll see for those eager reps that you have. Give them the tools to be successful without them even asking for it.
Awesome. Really great stuff, guys. Thank you so much for all of that. We're going to switch into audience questions. We have a couple, but not too many. So audience members, if you've got anything that comes up, feel free. Ryan, I'm going to give you this one first because you have talked about just, transitioning individual reps to managers. So as leaders emerge, and this is from Elio, I hope I didn't pronounce this incorrectly, but as leaders emerge, should they implement best practice sharing among teams? So maybe among their other teams when it comes to emerging into a leadership role.
Yeah, I think that's something that ZoomInfo is currently working on, right? We want to standardize how our managers are ramping and developing, and we want to have consistent messaging across that team because, again, that's how we can make quick pivots. So yes, absolutely. I think, for us, we pod together those future leaders. They go in leadership development courses. They get more hands-on training with their managers. They have a different course of action. We also, with our managers and our director level, we meet on a weekly basis to share what best practices are working, what best practices aren't working, and we make informed decisions as a unit. So I think, yes, collaboration, sharing those things from an IC to manager role is really critical. And then also, even at the manager, director, and VP level, it's something that we still do as we move up the food chain.
Awesome. All right, so we've got another question here. This one's from Ellie. And I'm not sure who mentioned this, so whoever did, please answer this question. The question is, you mentioned being empathetic as something you look for. What does that look like as in a sale or in someone that you are coaching? So I'm assuming in sales or in someone that you are coaching, and why is it important? I don't know which one you talked about.
I think that might have been me. And I think, what I would say to that is every prospect, every customer that we deal with, they're all different. They're all unique. They have their own specific challenges. And, we all have those reps that are very emotional. They might get a no and it might ruin their day. And if they get a yes, they're on top of the world. So I think, when I say empathy, what I'm looking for is someone that can take the no's, can take the yeses, and still produce at a high level and not let that disrupt their day-to-day and their performance. And I look for that because as a manager, and as a leader, we all know that, again, sometimes there's tough decisions. There's hard conversations that we need to have. Sometimes, what might be bothering your rep might not be work related. It could be personal. So I'm looking for someone that can drive those relationships with their team, that can understand at a human level to some extent, what's driving this person? What are the things that they care about even behind the scenes? Because the stronger relationship that you have with your team, I think the better results, the more likely they are to make those pivots, to try those new talk tracks, to adapt to the things that you're asking them to do. So for me, empathy is just so important because, again, we're dealing with humans, whether it's with our customers or whether it's with our sales team. And I want that connection so that I can, help get the most out of that person and get them to where they need to be.
I think adding to that, Ryan, you brought up a good point, when it comes to having empathy too, right? That what you just said really stood out to me, Ryan. It's at the end of the day, yes, we're salespeople. We have targets to hit. We have hard conversations to have, but you also need to understand that your buyers have lives too in their day-to-day. And I think even especially once you move into a managerial role and the conversations get more and more tough, whether it's with your reps or with a customer, you need to adapt to that conversation and what that emotion is right then and there. right? If they're excited about ZoomInfo, you want to be excited. If things are not going well, you want to understand so that you can fix or pave a path forward, especially for reps that may be underperforming. These are so vital.
Awesome. Is there any questions in here, guys, that you're seeing you would like to answer? There's a two new ones that came in. I didn't know if there was anything else you guys wanted to toss out.
I could take a shot at Lauren Jensen's. I know, Lauren, looks like you're asking, do you have any advice for a startup leader who is both building the playbook and selling before hiring and building a team? I think the best thing that I could recommend there, Lauren, is document as much of this as possible, right? Like, you'd be surprised. You'll remember, like, hey, these are great things. These are great emails. These are great, proposal templates that you're using. And then once you start building out that team, you'll be like, oh, shoot, where did that go? Or where did I put that? Or in what inbox is this? So one of the things that I can recommend, Lauren, like, I've had the pleasure of being an IC to scaling out teams and building out this EMEA organization from scratch. And my recommendation is just, if it's big or little, it doesn't matter. If you think it can add value, if you think it's going to be a part of your playbook, document it as immediately as you can and try to organize it as best as you can in sense of, like, is this a go-to-market type playbook? Is this an internal development type playbook? Is this something that's, external and ramping a new rep? But for me, like, I ask my leadership team to document as much of this as possible. And then also document the data on the back end. Most CRMs, most sales automation tools, marketing automation tools, they have data and analytics on the back end. You need to make sure that on a weekly or monthly, depending on your sales cycle length, you are going back into that. You are taking that data and you're using it to make decisions in the future, because again, that will scale. No matter how big or small your team is, the results you're getting, the data and analytics you have now, it will scale as you grow your team. So you're going to want to have a starting point so that you can continue to look at historicals down the road. So document everything and then really take a look at the analytics as you're still growing.
Awesome. Alrighty, I think we're just going to wrap up there. Thank you, everyone from the audience, for joining us. We do have a survey for you all. So that survey should be on the bottom of your screen. If not, it will pop up as we conclude this session. And just wanted to know, let us know if you're interested in talking to anybody here at ZoomInfo, but also wanted to know, does your sales team use conversation intelligence today? Just as a curiosity for us, definitely want to understand that. But we encourage you to fill out the survey. We encourage you to come back and join us for another session. We will have these more regularly if we can. But thank you all for attending today. The recording will be sent out within 24 to 48 hours after we conclude via email. And thank you, Ryan and Phil, for being here. Really appreciate your time and your expertise. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great, wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.